Welcome to Bad at Goodbyes. Each week on our show, we spotlight species from the IUCN Critically Endangered Red List. These are plants and animals with decreasing populations, nearing the edges of extinction. We'll share species research information and conservation proposals, and then we'll spend a chunk of the show opening a space for contemplation and awe. We'll perform a kind of meditative soundscape of gentleness, quietude, and maybe mourning. There's a very low likelihood that any of these species will survive the 21st century. And so perhaps we might acknowledge their passage with a moment of our attention, a recognition of our kinship, and with a commitment to personal and systemic change. Thank you for listening. On today's show, we consider the Sardinian Currant. The Sardinian currant is a critically endangered flowering plant native to the Italian island of Sardinia in the Mediterranean Sea. The Sardinian currant is a deciduous shrub in the gooseberry and currant family. It's small, reaching heights of 3 to 6 feet tops. The main trunk is slender, often less than 3 inches in diameter, with smooth bark that's slightly textured, varying in color from light brown to gray. The shrub's branches are numerous and somewhat spreading, creating a rounded canopy of foliage. Leaves are small, roughly 1/2 to 1 inch in width and length, with 3 lobes, like reminiscent of like a squat maple leaf, maybe. The leaves' margins are toothed, and the surface is covered in fine hairs, giving it a slightly fuzzy texture. These hairs are called trichomes, and they help reduce water loss from transpiration. They reflect some sunlight, reducing heat stress, and they provide some protection against herbivory, so it's like being eaten by plant-eating herbivores. And so, though they're not like a physical defense, like thorns or spines, the dense covering of trichomes can deter small insects from landing and climbing on the leaves and then eating them, obviously. And then the hairs also create an unpleasant texture for larger grazers. Like if I had the choice between a salad and a hairy salad, I would pick the one without hair. Leaves are soft green during the spring and turn yellow and reddish in the autumn before dropping for the winter. Sardinian currant's flowers are warm yellow, greenish blooms that develop into small red berries. The Sardinian currant is considered hermaphroditic, meaning that both male and female reproductive organs present in the same flower. But unlike most hermaphroditic plants, the Sardinian currant is able to self-fertilize. So that means that a single individual can fertilize itself and produce viable seeds. Scientists also believe that the Sardinian currant may reproduce optimictically, meaning that it can produce viable seeds even without pollination and fertilization. And so, though viable, both of these reproductive adaptations limit genetic diversity. In both cases, offspring are genetically identical to the parent plant. But the currant also reproduces sexually. Bees and flies attracted to the nectar in the Sardinian currant's flowers are believed to be the primary pollinators. And though the shrub's blooms are relatively small, their open structure and accessible nectar are suited for insect visitation. The flowering period typically spans from April to early June, when the insects will drink nectar and then inadvertently spread pollen from the male parts of the flower, that's the stamen, to the female parts, the pistil. And the pollen grains travel down the pistil to the ovary, where they fertilize the ovules. Ovules are like the potential seeds. And then once fertilization occurs, the ovary begins to swell and mature. The walls of the ovary thicken, becoming the fruit's flesh, while the ovules inside develop into seeds. In the case of the Sardinian currant, the ovary develops into a small red berry containing numerous seeds. This fruit ripening period takes place from July to October. And then the ripe fruit is eaten, most likely by birds. This is called endozookery, which means that the seeds are dispersed by animals that consume the berries and distribute the seeds via their excrement. The seeds passing through the digestive tract of the birds undergo scarification, which is the process of breaking or weakening the hard outer coat of a seed. And so the acidic environment and physical grinding, like within the bird's digestive tract, softens the seed coat. That process allows water to penetrate the seed coat more readily, which triggers the metabolic processes that initiate germination. So, in other words, it essentially wakes up the dormant embryo within the seed, prompting it to sprout and grow. The seeds of the Sardinian currant also require a period of cold temperature to initiate germination. This adaptation ensures that the seeds sprout under favorable conditions, so this is typically in the following spring after the seeds are dispersed. So the cold winter temperatures initiate germination, and then they sprout in the springtime. The Sardinian currant is native to the island of Sardinia in the western Mediterranean Sea, roughly 150 miles west of mainland Italy. Over 30 million years ago, the northern part of Sardinia was connected to Corsica and mainland Europe. The southern section was part of the Iberian Plate. And so then through tectonic shifts and plate movement, these two microplates collided and fused together roughly 25 million years ago, forming the island that we know today. Following that collision, the now combined microplate detached from the edge of the Eurasian tectonic plate and rotated counterclockwise, eventually settling into its current position. Volcanic activity also shaped the Sardinian landmass. Volcanic eruptions tens of thousands of years ago created the dramatic mountain ranges and rock formations of the Sardinian Currant's habitat. The Sardinian Currant is found in a single site on Mount Carassi, where it grows in a small southeast-facing valley. Its population is spread across just a 700 square meter area. So this is like roughly the size of 2 basketball courts. This is a rugged terrain with exposed granite and limestone formations interspersed with patches of vegetation. The soil here is thin and rocky, presenting challenges for many plant species, but the Sardinian currant has a robust root system that's adapted well to these rocky soil conditions. This is a Mediterranean bioregion of hot, dry summers with temperatures reaching into the 90s and mild, wet winters with temperatures rarely dipping below freezing. Annual rainfall averages between 25 to 30 inches, with most of that precipitation occurring during the winter months. The Sardinian currant shares its mountainside home with Mediterranean gecko, golden eagle, Corsica heath butterfly, lavender, thyme, tree frog, poppy, rosemary, Sardinian warbler, strawberry tree, Eurasian jay, griffin vulture, wild boar, Eleonora's falcon, European green toad, mastic tree, Sardinian wildcat, holm oak, wall lizard, orchid, European hare, and many, many more. In the dream, I wander. In the dream, and often in my life, I am searching, but I do not know for what. In my life, it often turns out to be house keys, or a mug of cold coffee, or the soft kiss of a new love. In this dream, it is a weak hunger, sense of absence wanting to be filled. So I walk high ridges and paths carved through granite, dry air scented with lavender, scrub grasses wind up the mountainside. And then eastward into a small valley filled with yellow flowers and bright red berries, tiny and impossibly rare. And blessedly, before I must decide to eat, I wake. I wake from the dream. Historically, human encroachment and the destruction of wilderness for agriculture, urbanization, and infrastructure development has fragmented and reduced the Sardinian currant's habitat. Today, overgrazing by human-introduced domesticated livestock, specifically goats, is impacting the Sardinian currant population. Livestock consume and damage young plants, trample seedlings, and alter soil structure, making it less hospitable for the shrub's growth. Human-induced climate change is an emerging threat. Rising temperatures disrupt the balance of the currant's life cycle, particularly its reliance on cold dormancy for seed germination. The theory here is that it's not getting cold enough, it's no longer getting cold enough to trigger seed germination. And the Sardinian currant's limited genetic diversity makes it even more susceptible to all of these threats. Its small population size and its self-pollinating reproductive strategy limits its gene pool. And that limited gene pool hinders its ability to adapt to new changes. Like, these genetic bottlenecks increase extinction risk. The Sardinian currant is included in Annex 2 of the EU's Habitats Directive. This is conservation legislation that mandates the establishment of special areas of conservation to protect threatened habitats. An on-site cultivation and restoration program was initiated in 2017, resulting in the successful germination and transplanting of 23 new individuals located within the plant's native range, but fenced in to prevent grazing. Off-site cultivation and preservation programs are also in place. The Botanical Garden of Florence on the Italian mainland has successfully cultivated Sardinian currant, and a collection of seeds has been added to the Sardinian germplasm bank to conserve genetic variability for future conservation activities. Nevertheless, the Sardinian currant has been considered critically endangered on the IUCN Red List since 2006. And their population is currently in decline. Most recent counts estimate that less than 80 Sardinian currant remain in the wild. Information for today's episode about the Sardinian currant was compiled from Plant Signaling and Behavior, Volume 7, Issue 11, Plant Biology, Volume 17, Issue 5, Plant Biology, Volume 20, Issue S1, the Carolitan Botanical Museum at the University of Cagliari, Wikipedia, and the IUCN. And so in a moment, I would like to perform some music in hopes of opening a space to be in contemplation of the other lives with whom we share our earth. First, I just want to clarify that this music isn't for or of the Sardinian currant. I don't want to extract meaning or put meaning upon the Sardinian currant. Instead, I want this music to be a moment for human listeners and for myself in particular, to hold space for awe and reflection, considering our relationship to other life. And so I will build and sit in the space of sound, awe, contemplation, and reflection. And I warmly invite you to join me. I honor the life force of the Sardinian Currant. I will keep its human name in my record. I am grateful to have shared time on our planet with this being. And I lament the ways in which I and my species have harmed and diminished this species. So, in the name of the Sardinian Currant, I pledge to reduce my consumption and reduce my carbon footprint and reduce my wastefulness. I pledge to acknowledge and attempt to address the costs of my actions and inactions. And I pledge to resist the harm of any plant and animal kin or their habitat by individuals, corporations, and governments. I pledge my song to the witness and memory of all life, to a broad celebration of biodiversity, to the total liberation of all beings. This has been Bad at Goodbyes. Thank you for listening. Until next time, let's take care of each other and all of our kin. Goodbye.